Hi everyone, it is good to see y'all here on my channel. I thought I was going to do a front-facing video today because the tag I am responding to is by Tarot is Magic, and it is titled Let's Be Tarot Friends. And so, I mean, you kind of need to see my face if I'm saying let's be tarot friends. Like, I feel like that's important. But this is more of a chatty prompt than a deck-heavy prompt, so I figured what better time than to do this now. So with that being said, I have not filmed a lot of front-facing content since I taught during COVID about 5 years ago. So if I make any egregiously difficult errors, I'm just gonna ask you please be patient with me. I'm very out of practice, but I wanna make more front-facing content. That's important to me. So I figured, let's do it, let's jump in. So with that being said, the first prompt is, what kind of art are you attracted to? And I'm really attracted to a very intuitive kind of read. I like a deck that makes me wonder if I even know tarot at all. I really love that. I like decks that push the boundaries and really make me consider what it is I'm seeing. So for example, this is Dream Enchantress, and this is the Hierophant. Really love that he doesn't have any people here at the bottom that are bowing to him. He just stands here in his authority. He could almost look like an emperor in the same sense. The font is really small, like you can see that this is a 5 up at the top, but for the most part in these images, you're focused more on the images than you are the symbols explaining to you what the cards are. And I like that because it means that I read the titles of the cards way after I've already kind of intuitively responded to the language and the image. I meant to say image. So I find it to be a really beautiful depiction. This, for example, is Judgment, and we can see the nod to the Judgment with her blowing the horn. But the fact we have animals that are rising from below. Like, are these her familiars? Were these the animals that she knew once before? Is she living in a civilization where animals are treated with the same level of respect as humans or human-like creatures? It brings to mind a lot of questions for me, and I think that's important. This is 9 of Pentacles, but instead of having one person, there are 2 people. I'm going to explain why that's important in just a little bit. But why is that? So this is a question that makes me ask why. And I need a question that makes me ask why. I need a deck that makes me ask why. Sorry. So I would say that that is primarily what I look for in a deck. Is I want some intuitive readers. I want decks that I'm not going off a rote memory when I'm reading with them. That's important to me. So what do I look for in a deck? I look for a lot of movement, and I look for an emotional response. Sometimes it's hard for me to tell if I'm going to have an emotional response to a deck until I get it in my hands. I've heard that's a pretty common refrain that people make. But this is one of my most emotional decks. This is my Mystical Moments. I love this deck. I love this Tower. This is a very emotional card for me because I oftentimes think of the Tower as associated with ego death. So the fact that we have this skull, and then we have this tower coming out of it, it's almost like all of our structures have dismantled and kind of died. And so I have a lot of room to kind of play with this image and kind of sink my teeth into my own spiritual beliefs. And it's just a little bit kooky enough to make me have that emotional response. This is the Hermit, for example. And I think of this woman and this child, and she looks to me like she's a teacher. She's trying to teach him. But when I see this, I have an emotional response to this gate that's up at the top. Is it a portal? Is he about to go through the portal? Is she about to go through the portal? What's happening with the portal? And so my mind gets really stuck on that kind of intuitive thing, similar to Dream Enchantress. But I see and feel so much from this. This is the Dreamer of Pentacles, which would be the Page of Pentacles. For years, literally years, I thought that the crab was actually pinching her nipple and she was bleeding. So naturally I kind of had this kind of emotional reaction to that. But I thought to myself, well, the Page of Pentacles is someone who is going to do whatever she can to learn that skill, even if that kind of means harming herself. Like, she's so young and she's inexperienced that she might accidentally push herself beyond her boundaries. And I can see now, like, very clearly that it's a wolf, but like on an emotional level, I'm still responding to that very visceral image. This is death. The Lovers. Two of Swords. Oh, this is one of my favorite Two of Swords of all time. I feel like Two of Swords has so much tension, right? This person is in this, what do we call it? Plane. And they're deciding, do I get eaten by the sea monster or do I try to get out? Even if it means that I'm gonna fall. Like, what I'm gonna do, I'm stuck at this kind of standstill. And they can see up here that there's this beautiful castle. So their dreams are right there, but like the practicality of reaching the dreams is unsure. Like, they know where they wanna go, they have that vision, but how am I gonna get there? Am I going to stay stuck and let circumstances fall as they might, or am I gonna take action and move forward? And then Knight of Pentacles. Beautiful. I love this deck. I feel like both those decks that I just showed sit in the same space for me. Dream Enchantress has a lot more air to it, whereas the deck I just showed you, which would be Mystical Dreams, this has a lot more like water and emotion. So I like it. So number 3 is a deck that I'm intrigued with now, and I'm gonna go ahead and vote for this one. Let me find this deck. It's going to be Raven's Prophecy. This is one of my newest decks that I got in my collection. I don't even think I've shown it on my channel. Y'all know I'm an orange girl. I love orange. So I will be using this deck all year. I don't care that it's not Halloween. This is now officially my deck. I love it. And this is like the Knight of Swords, and you can see the blood on the like scissors. And because this is so stripped back and it's so pippy, I can imagine for myself, like, why did someone get stabbed? Like, what happened? What are the altercations? How did the altercations lead to violence? And it's a very deep, like, guttural kind of feeling. So it makes sense that I really, really love this deck. Let's see what this is. The Wheel of Fortune, representing the changing of all of the seasons. Especially with, like, this beautiful, like, Grandpa Ott marigold right here. I have a lot of that in my yard. I have oak trees that are in my yard. So this is very representative to me of what the Wheel of Fortune means, is that we can't stay stuck. We have to move with those cycles. And there's some cards like here, like Queen of Wands. I'm not really a fan of her. Like, she works. But like Page of Cups, like this nice little soft innocence. So protected, so kind of new to the world. I love it. I think the images are deeply potent, and I think that's what is really attracting me to it right now. So the next question is a card that I look for when I'm buying a deck. I don't know if I necessarily have one card that I look for all the time, but if I have the chance, I do tend to look for Temperance. So let me see if I can find that. As someone who has grown up in coastal communities, Temperance really resonates a lot with me. It is by far my favorite card. That's one of the prompts later on. I'm going to cheat a little bit. It's one of my favorite cards. Or rather, it is my favorite card, period. It's number 1. And I think it's because I really deeply resonate with the concept of having one foot on land and one foot on water. I think living in Louisiana, there's always that worry of, what is this next hurricane season going to look like? I've known a lot of people who've lived through pretty substantial floods. And I think that I know that feeling of sitting there halfway between the water and halfway between land, and always being in such close communication with both. And like, seafood is a massive part of our culture. That of course comes from the water. I'm a huge plant person. And so it just reminds me of that connection between both worlds. But more importantly than that, like, it reminds me of how water kind of like pushes up against us, right? Like I said, sometimes water can be like very powerful and it can try to like swallow us. And I think that's what the Death card signifies, is that in death, that water has like overtaken us. It has completely like knocked us out and like stolen our breath. But with Temperance, it's like we can take a step back and we're not in that death period anymore. Now we can have one foot on the ground. Now we can catch a break. Now we can rest. Now we can heal. And we have that opportunity to breathe. We know the velocity of what that water can bring. We know the power and how it can sweep us up. But we still have that foot, you know, firmly situated in the ground. So for me, it's really important that decks have one foot on the ground, one foot in water. However, the next question is, if I don't like a card, would I choose not to buy the deck? Would I choose to pass it on? You know, do I have any deal breaker cards? And I can say that I don't think that I do. I've never rehomed a deck because I didn't like one card. I feel like we buy different decks and that deck's called to us for specific reasons. So when I sit down and I feel like, say for example, Spirit Keeper's Tarot is calling to me, it's because I need to see a specific card in that deck at that specific time. So if I were to pull, for example, a Temperance card from a deck that had both feet on land, it's probably because I need to ask myself, am I holding on too closely to land? And I need to let myself just flow with the current, right? Because I'm clearly not embracing that power of that water. Meanwhile, if I have both feet that are in the water, but I have nothing on land, am I really in a temperance period, or am I still experiencing some residual effects of that water that is the death that is kind of wiping me away? And so I feel like even if the deck doesn't depict a card exactly how I want it to be depicted, I still might need that card one day, which is why I tend not to rehome decks very much, because it's like, even if I don't vibe with that deck, like what's gonna happen 2 years from now when like I might hear that deck calling to me? And I know realistically that I could rebuy it. I don't have a problem with people like rehoming decks or rebuying decks per se, but for me it's like I don't have the budget to do that, so I'm just gonna keep it, and it might call to me, and if it doesn't, I have this big old tarot armoire right here. I have enough room to store it, at least for now. So with that being said, my favorite card is Temperance. My least favorite card by far is Nine of Pentacles, but I'm trying to work on her, y'all. So I know all of you know what Nine of Pentacles looks like, but for me, I'm gonna go ahead and pull it out. Nine of Pentacles. She's the most painful card for me because when I was living in Alabama, it was the hardest year of my life, and I never want to do it again. And like I talk about that in therapy, and I'm working on things. My husband and I are talking about that year. You know, there is active healing occurring in that area. But I was in a position where I felt like I had the entire garden, right? I had everything. I had everything I needed. I was saving a tremendous amount of money. I was able to spend whatever money I wanted going out. I could order food out all the time. Like, we were in a very financially stable position. Not so much now, at least not like that. But that was the richest I ever felt in my life, but also the loneliness, most lonely I felt. Like I was in this garden, but I was the only one there. And so I had that wealth. I had those achievements. I was very proud of myself. I was very proud of my husband. There was that sense of self-agency, but who was in there to share the garden with me? You know? So I'm working on her. Like, for example, I don't know if you can see it. Let's see. Whoop, right there. Okay, right there. That Polaroid picture. On my altar space back there, I have a picture of my beautiful, gorgeous kitty cat. And she is the embodiment of what it means to be a Nine of Pentacles. She is very regal and royal and dignified. She has her comfortable treats. She has her comfortable bed. She has everything in terms of her physical needs met for, and then she'll still go in my closet and pick another blanket she likes. Like, she'll literally take out a blanket if she prefers that blanket. And so I've been working with Vino, putting up a picture of her and trying to remind myself that I'm not in the position that I was in before. And so it's been really incredibly uplifting to me to, for example, this is my vision board for 2025. This is a picture of me and my best friend, but you can't see it. And I have Nine of Pentacles right there. And it's a message to myself that my garden has a gate. And while in the past I felt like that gate was closed to other people for whatever reasons, there were a lot of reasons, my garden has a gate. and I can choose to share that luxury with others. I can choose to let people into this home that I've built through my sacrifices, through my husband's sacrifices. I can choose to let people in. So she's my least favorite card. I know y'all probably love her. Most people love her. But to me, she is a reminder of loneliness. But I think I'm going to try to rewrite it. You know, if I think of her and think of my cat, and I love my baby girl, and she is like such a Knight of Pentacles, I think that I'll be able to kind of reckon with that. So we'll see at the end of the year how I feel in regards to the Knight of Pentacles. Hopefully I've done enough work to where I can say that I no longer hate it. More like it can be like neutral. So with that being said, what do people close to me feel about tarot and me doing it? I'm going to go ahead and say that everyone that is relevant to my life, ooh, that kind of came off as a little aggressive, sorry. Everyone who I'm like really close to and who needs to know about tarot knows about my tarot and is very supportive of it. And so for example, like my husband, he not only helps me pick out decks, he not only helps me to like set up this armoire so that I can put decks in there, but like he knows the decks that I have for the most part. And even when I'm like working on a prompt and I say, ooh, the prompt says the most talkative deck, he's like, ooh, you should use Spirit Keeper's Tarot. And he'll like remind me of decks that I have that I haven't used for a while. But it's because like he looks and he pays attention and he knows this is something that's really important to me. My best friend is extremely supportive. I read for her all the time. My other close friends are the ones that got me into tarot, so they're very supportive of it as well. Many of them watch my channel, so if y'all are here, love y'all very much. And I think I'm good with that. Like, I think it's important for me sometimes to remember that while transparency and vulnerability are some of my core values, I need to express those core values in a way that feels safe to me. And I think living in Southern Louisiana, there is still so much stigma. And so I think I share as much as I possibly can with the people around me in a way that's safe for me. Yeah. So I think that I'm going to keep it there. So the next question is, how do I feel about esoteric stuff in tarot? And I'm going to grab my Tarot of Vampires. I just finished my study, y'all. I studied this deck for 2 years. Speaking of supportive, my husband edged this one. So look how good. My edges don't come out that clean. That's definitely because he was willing to spend like 2 hours doing that. I'm a little impatient. That's why I don't mod decks often. The Tarot of Vampires, I think, is my most esoteric deck. It has layers of Kabbalah in it that are written in a very accessible way in the guidebook. It also has layers of astrology. I do not consider myself to be an occult queen by any means. I'm not deep into esoterica. But with that being said, I'm definitely someone who loves the layers. I love the layers. So if you give me a deck or you give me a system, more importantly a system, and I have something that I can deep dive into and really get the depth that I crave, the depth that I desire, I'm going to take to it pretty well. So by no means am I like anywhere advanced, but I did complete my study of this deck and I feel like it brought me closer. I have Tabula Mundi and I do have the book for Tabula Mundi, but I find it to be like, when I tried reading it about 2 years ago, it was still a little bit over my head. I think I've learned more since then. And so I'm going to see if I can handle it now. But since I just finished this 2-year-long study, it was a lot, y'all. It's not this deck's fault. I just wasn't in the headspace for a study, and I wasn't in a headspace for something this deep. I think I'm going to wait until I feel the calling to do a little bit more of that deep diving. The truth is, I just don't have a lot of time anymore. And like for me, when I'm deep diving into things, I like to spend hours because I like to be able to contemplate. And I think that like, I just don't have time like that the way I used to. Maybe one day. Summer's coming up soon. So the next question is, what is my preferred system? RWS, Tarot de Marseille, and Thoth, and why? I'm going to say, well, my favorite system technically is kind of like all of the above and also none of them. So let me look for the deck that I'm going to show you. I like decks that have pips, but I don't care for the Thoth Tarot because I don't like pips that have keywords. I like decks that have keywords and I like pip decks, but I don't like decks that have keywords. Or like pips that have keywords. There you go, I corrected myself. I feel like pips are, for me, read very expansively. And so if I have a keyword that boxes me in, then I feel like I can't breathe. I want to be able to pull in numerology, pull in astrology, pull in what I know about Tarot de Marseille, pull in what I know about Thoth, pull in what I know about RWS. I kind of have a very blended reading style that's very dependent on what I feel like the card is trying to convey to me. And so if a deck has keywords and is also pip, then I feel like I kind of get robbed of the expansiveness of that pip. With Tarot de Marseille, I feel like the pips are most closely in alignment with what I want. But because it's rooted in a traditional structure, sometimes I feel like I can't necessarily bastardize the pips and bring in like all of this other stuff, right? Like astrology wasn't built into Tarot de Marseille. And so I feel a little bit weird about kind of blending those, even though I know I technically could. Tarot de Marseille, though, I don't care for the majors as much as I care for them in RWS. And I know you can essentially read them the same, but RWS imagery of the majors is my favorite because, like, for example, like the Empress in Tarot de Marseille, it's kind of like a more standoffish woman that has the shield. In RWS, we have like this gorgeous woman behind this field of wheat. And so I get a lot from those images. So I kind of want a pip deck that leans a little bit more RWS. So one of my favorites of this one, this is a newer deck to my collection. And this is going to be, let me make sure that I show the relevant cards. This is the Totem Tarot. Love it. See, look. So this is Persephone and is the Hermit. It might be a little bit strange to see the pomegranate on like the Hermit and not on essentially the Empress, but this really works to me. The concept of kind of going underground like Persephone does, the concept of like the Hermit going inside of the cave, I really like that, as opposed to like more of the prudence meaning that is depicted in Tarot de Marseille. And then here are the gorgeous, lovely pips. So this is 4 of crystals, which would be 4 of pentacles. And what I'm really seeing is, especially with this X here, we have a firm box. We have a firm foundation. So all of our resources are in alignment. Actually, our resources are in like perfect communication with each other because we can see the relationship between them. Here is another one. The 5 of the moons. This is 5 of cups. Some of these moons are like really kind of faded out and slipping underneath this tide, whereas some are still really strong. So I think it's a reminder of kind of like the residual effects that grief can have. You know, sometimes like the grief kind of slips underneath the surface, but there's still parts of it that are still very present. So I like that. I'm going to show this deck more, I think, once I get to know it a little bit. This is the Totem Tarot. I like a deck that gives me expansion. So my next question is thoughts on cardstock. And my opinion is, honest to God, thinner the better. So this is Chromata Emblemata. And this is how thick this is compared to my favorite cardstock, which is going to be my Aztec Tarot. I have really small hands, so you can actually see it's like quite difficult for me to wrap my hands around this. And I shuffle overhand. So even though Chromata Emblemata has gorgeous cardstock, like you can hear like the good like shuffle, it's sometimes really difficult for me to work with this deck because it like literally physically is too thick. I'm just showing you some of the cards from it. But it is a beautiful deck. It's not the thickest deck that I have, but it's the one that I happen to have available. I do love this card though. 9 of Cups, and so she drank her fill. King of Wands, I nourish and I extinguish. I love this card. So that one's like a little bit thick for me, whereas the Aztec Tarot is like the perfect length. like for perfect thickness, as well as it's linen. I wonder if you can actually see it from the card art. I don't think you can in this light. But it is this gorgeous, pliable linen. This is the best cardstock. It's just so good. So I do firmly prefer a linen finish, but I want it to be like a thinner linen. So like, there we go. That's perfect for me. All right, so next question is boxes or bags. Put everything in a bag, always. I put everything in a bag. I've always done that. I don't know why. I prefer how it's stored. I don't like having like the big clunky bags, so the big clunky boxes, so those stay in my closet. But I just buy like, I want to support indie bag creators so much, but because most bags from indie deck creators cost anywhere between like $15 to like $30, I can't do it as much as I want. So I do have some, like this is from an indie bag creator, this one right here. This one, I have a Peggy bag right here. So I have like some, but I quickly kind of learned that it was like too expensive for me to buy completely indie bag creators. So I want to buy more, but I'll be completely honest with you. Most of the time I do go to Amazon and I buy these bags. I just like search up tarot bags and I buy like a set of like 6 or 7 of them. And then I stack up on the bags and I don't have to think about them for a while. But it's not my favorite thing to admit, but I really like the things in bags, and it can get really, really pricey if you're spending like $15 to $30 on a bag plus a deck. So like I pretty much like reserved like those special bags for like the decks that are like really special. So like if I have a deck that is like super, super special to me, I'll go ahead and splurge. So I do it as much as possible. So with that being said, how did you get into tarot? So the year that was really bad that I had already spoken about with Alabama, and I'm not going to spend too long on it, I was in the darkest place of my life, and I saw my friend Michelle do a tarot reading on Instagram, and I was like, you know what? That looks kind of cool. And I had never really encountered tarot before that. I had gotten like one reading before that was like really accurate, and I was like, you know what? I feel like this might be for me. And so I contacted my friend and she gave me some advice. She told me the best tarot advice of all time. She said, get a deck that you feel like you're attracted to. Don't feel like you have to get like a standard RWS because that's what everyone is using. Like that is important, but make sure that you get a deck that aligns with some of your current interest. And that way you can kind of love the deck for what it is, but also bring your own knowledge to the deck as well. And so the first deck I ever bought was, of course, tarot. And I bought it from her advice. I'll go ahead and show it. I have edged this one in black. It just looks so good in black. But the majors are, of course, plants. And then we have pips. So there's clearly a reason why I love a good pip deck, especially like a black pip deck. I don't know if you're noticing that, but like a heavy black pip deck. I have some overlap in my collection with this. But it just, I get a lot from this. So I'm gonna go ahead and say thank you to Michelle for like being like so willing to make tarot accessible. I think I still try to do some readings on my Instagram when I have the chance. I still try to do Tarot Tuesdays when I can, because I think it's important for people to like see tarot in action and see that it isn't like this magical, mystical kind of crazy thing that like no one can do, but it's something that like everyone can do because everyone is intuitive. We just have to practice that and kind of learn to listen to our intuition. But I will say that the moment that I pulled cards from tarot, I took a picture of it and I recorded in my journal what the reading was, because I knew that my entire life was going to be changed forever. So my best tarot news that I received this year was that the Louisiana Cajun Creole Tarot funded. So my friend Jared, sometimes he watches my videos. He's my real life friend. Hey, if you're watching, but he decided that he was going to create and put on Kickstarter the Louisiana Cajun Creole Tarot. And as someone who has lived in Louisiana his entire life and actually has lived in the city where I'm teaching and is like 20 minutes south of me, the deck is really filled with a lot of Acadiana culture, which is where I'm from. So it's going to be so special to me to be able to use this deck and feel like I'm communicating with like spirits of place, and I'm getting to constantly incorporate elements of my culture. I think it's really important that our practice be as closely aligned to our community as possible. And so I have a lot of like big plans for it. So that was my best news, is that Cajun Conjurer funded his Louisiana Cajun Creole Tarot. So how many decks do I have on my wish list? I have 2 wish lists. I have one that is like publicly available, and I have like a short list for me. And on my publicly available list, it's probably like 50, because I tend to be, that's the list I give to friends when they want to give me a gift. It's also the list that like I have like linked on my like link tree. I tend to be like pretty open-minded with decks, so I have like a fair bit that are posted there. Unfortunately, that list is just Amazon, so it's all mass market. But I tend to prioritize as much as I can and as much as my budget can, like indie decks for myself. So like I think that my public wish list probably has like 50, but like my more like short list of decks that like I really want, I think I only have like 8. I'm actually at a point right now where I feel pretty secure with my tarot collection. I have some things coming in that are Kickstarters, such as like the Gentle Tarot Oracle, which is like my friend Fire. I have the Tarot by Menzel that I'm really excited about. And so I have a lot of stuff that's coming in that I'm looking forward to. The Louisiana Cajun Creole Tarot. So I'm not like in a really big rush to clear off that wish list. And I think I'm good with that. Like I think I finally kind of hit a point where I'm like, all right, I think this is where I want to be for a little while. So if I could only keep 3 decks, what would they be? Well, you know, this is one of them. Actually, it wouldn't even be this copy. This is my copy that I use for professional readings. This is also my copy I show on YouTube. I have another copy that is stored in this, and this is my personal copy. So I'd keep that one. That deck is the most important deck to me, point blank period. I would also keep, of course, no surprise, William Blake. Because what I said earlier about intuitive reads, decks that hurt my head and like make me wonder, am I even reading tarot at all? Like, what am I doing? Decks that hit me so deeply intuitively. William Blake is that. It's so fiery. There's so much active movement. I only have 8% of fire in my chart. So fire is not really an element that I closely associate with myself. And I really feel like this is the deck that kicks me in the ass and gives me that kind of like go. Sorry, I'm not showing it very close. Once again, I'm out of practice. It's beautiful. So that would be my second one. And then my third one is kind of a toss-up. It's kind of a toss-up. I told myself I wasn't going to do a toss-up, but I don't think that I can. So can I cheat and say 4 decks? I think I have to. I just had to reach to my altar space. I think that this would be my third deck. This is Story Through Stones by Sandera Quackenbush. And these are all images of stones that her father collected while he was a park ranger. This deck deeply touches me in with spirit. This is the deck that I use to communicate with my grandfather. And this deck meets me in a grounded kind of ancestral wisdom kind of way. So I think Story Through Stones would be one of those in third place. I'm an English teacher, not a math teacher, so I feel like I can get away with that. The other one in third place is going to be my Illusory Tarot. But when I explain to you the reason why I would have to keep this, I think y'all are going to understand. This is the deck that I use to communicate with my house. And so I haven't done a house reading in a little while. I probably need to, but this is the deck that I use exclusively to say, hey Cheryl, are you good? So I live in an A-frame. I don't know if I've shown you. Let me see if I can do it. So you can actually see the tilt of the wall. And Cheryl is a very groovy, She's a very funky girl. She's kind of hard to work with, I'm not gonna lie. It's very difficult that like I don't have that wall space because my walls are tinted. And this deck is kind of hard to work with, not gonna lie. But she's groovy and she's cool and she's interesting. And like Illusory is a deck that makes you say to yourself, like, I don't know her, but I want to know her. And I feel like that's kind of how Cheryl is. That's the name of my house, Cheryl. And so I have to keep this deck, but like, I mean, I can't pick between like choosing, like talking to my grandfather and like talking to my house. Like I need both. So what I'm gonna say is I need 4 decks at minimum. That's what I'm gonna say. All right, so how does knowing tarot influence you every day? So much. So much. I didn't draft my response to this beforehand, so I'm just gonna share the thoughts that I have. I feel like tarot makes me be more intentional because I have cards that I pull every single morning. I have cards that I pull at the beginning of every month. I have cards for the beginning of the week. I feel like I constantly have focal points to go back to. And that's really important to me, is that I actually get to live my life instead of let it pass me by. And so if I pull a card, this morning was, let's see, 3 of Wands, then I can actually look at all of the ways that my life is expanding outward and the ways that my ships that I've set out to sail are coming back. It makes me contemplate all the efforts of my work and all of the things that I did to get there, but most importantly, it reminds me to sit in that area of pride for it. And so I think that knowing tarot makes me more intentional, and it makes me pay attention to those moments. And even if I pull for a card, for example, yesterday was like 9 of Swords, and it was definitely a 9 of Swords day, I can sit more intentionally with the fear and the anxiety of the 9 of Swords and be able to work through that. So it makes me more intentional. And I think that's the key to like living a good life. So would I have learned tarot any other way? The way I learned tarot is I read Holistic Tarot. I don't know if you can see it. That big fat chunky book, like it's all the way at the end, the brown one. And I'm sure some of you have Holistic Tarot and you've read it. But the reason I mention the size is because I read that book top to bottom. Because my friend was like, oh, you want to learn tarot? Get a deck that interests you, and here's the book I recommend. And I was like, got it. And like I took her very literally. I was like, I'm supposed to read Holistic Tarot? Got it. And I will say those first few months of learning tarot, I think it was like 2 or 3 that it took me to get through the book, were some of the best months of my life. I think Benebell Wynn has a really beautiful way as an author, but as a speaker, of making the spiritual accessible and making intuition accessible. So she offers that perfect balance between like pure intuition and also like knowledge. And I think that forms the basis of what I think intuition is the concept of I'm connecting all of these thoughts, and most of that is happening on a subconscious level. But if I have a well of knowledge to pull from, then I'm able to make those connections more readily. And so I think Benebell Wynn is part of the reason that I believe that. And I think that I really needed a teacher that could explain to me why and could explain to me the history of tarot, and like I needed to know the purpose of all of these things, and like why do we do these routines and rituals. So I think I learned exactly the way that I was meant to. I think learning with Tara, because nature is such an innate part of my spirituality, this deck taught me that if all else fails, if I never have my cards again, I would still have the plants around me, I would still have the animals around me, I would still be able to connect to the ground. Because now that I know tarot, I'm able to step outside and see tarot reflected back to me in the plants and the animals that I see. So I don't think I would have learned tarot in any other way. I think it was exactly what I needed. I needed to jump head first and just like go all the way in and completely commit to it. So the next question is my feeling on the Three of Swords. The Three of Swords and I've had a lot of heavy work recently. The Three of Swords kept popping up for me, and I was like, oh, cool, heartbreak, ha ha ha, sorrow. And then a friend of mine, the friend who told me to read Annabelle Wynn, she did a reading for me, and she was like, Katie, I think the Three of Swords is popping up for you because you're feeling betrayal. And so that's what the Three of Swords means to me, because we have that concept of like the split between the mind and also the emotions. And so when we're feeling betrayed, we sit in that heavy space of like emotional heaviness, but also we're constantly thinking to ourselves, like, why did this person betray me? Why did this person hurt me? And that's all happening on like a mental realm. And so that I know that's not all that card like represents to me, but it's what that card like represents to me right now as I'm healing. And so that's what comes to mind. But in general, I don't have a problem with the Three of Swords. Like, I think of it in terms of like, this hurt is happening to me so that I can grow. So it's kind of like that. The three signifies the growth, the three signifies the expansion. And how is my mind gonna change because I'm going through this negative emotional experience? On like a radically different note, the next question is like, how many decks do I own? This is probably like a cheer up kind of question. I think I have like 105 right now. I think that's where I'm at. I'm like right over 100. I'm at like 105. I am getting to the point, I have shelves in this. I have like 3 shelves that are in the bottom. I am getting to the point where I'm having to like double stack decks. And I don't like that because I keep everything in bags. So if like, this is 5th Spirit. If Jupiter King is on top of 5th Spirit, I can't always see what I have. So because I'm starting to double stack decks, that's kind of like a signifier to me that like, I need to slow down. Like, it's not really a problem. I still remember what's in my bags, but I feel like 105 is like exactly where I need to be at this time. So if I could befriend one friend on TarotTube, who would it be? I've befriended a lot of friends on TarotTube, so I'm like scared to answer this question because I like you all. Like, I've met so many cool people in the comment section, in my DMs. Like, this has been such a loving, wonderful, supportive community for me. But I think if I could be friends with like one person in real life and like I had to pick, it would probably be Candy, because like I get a lot of inspiration from Candy in my daily life. Candy, like, she's definitely the kind of person who, her channel is her fucking space, and I love that. So like, Candy refuses to pigeonhole herself into, I'm just tarot. She's like tarot and magic and gardening and books, and I really love that when I'm sitting down to have a conversation with her, it feels like I'm getting to see a person that is expressing all parts of herself. So I think that would be the answer. But like, so many, like, just because I didn't name you doesn't mean that I don't value you. I promise you, like, I'm so thankful for all of you, and I'm so thankful that y'all are here. Like, this is a really great space for me to exist in. But more importantly, like, I love the types of people that are in this community. I love interacting with these individuals, and so I want to be friends with everybody. That's what I'm gonna say. That's my cheat answer. And then my favorite part of the day to do tarot, that's number 21. I like it in the morning. I like it in the morning, but I like it on Saturday mornings. My husband works on Saturday mornings, and while that is definitely inconvenient for like planning anything, like it's really inconvenient, it is really nice that like I have a period of time during Saturday to where I can sit down and the house is completely quiet. And I'm definitely a morning person. My brain tends to work better then, especially after I've had some coffee. So like, at 1 cup of coffee in, I'm working on my 2nd cup, and I'm sitting in my room and the light is flooding in. I'm someone who naturally needs like a lot of sunlight in order to maintain happiness. And so there's something really so methodical about sitting at my tarot desk and pulling cards and journaling and having all the time in the world to make the connections that I want to make. And I think I'm really blessed that I'm able to do that. Also, I like mornings because sometimes I'll take my coffee out into the garden, and especially when it's warm, I'll pull cards on the table. And I feel like you probably just heard a car passing. I live right next to like a major road, and so in the morning there just tends to be a lot less traffic. So I'm a morning girl. So I don't think I intended for this to be 40 5 minutes long. But one thing you gotta know about me, if you don't know already, I'm a pretty big yapper. So I think I'm gonna go ahead and call it a day. I am really happy to have all of you here, and it means the world to me that y'all are here. So I will see y'all again next time, and thank you again to Tarot is Magic for creating this. I don't know if I said it earlier, but Tarot is Magic has a really great series on their channel for the Herb Crafters Tarot, so if you're someone who struggles with the Herb Crafters Tarot, definitely give their videos a watch. So I'll leave them a link in the description box below. Alright, see y'all later.